before we head into it, a little introduction about myself. I'm Coach Blue. You can call me Blue. I coach in multiple regions: EMEA, NA, and APAC. And I've been coaching for the past 5 years, like Valorant and Overwatch and a few other games before. But mostly I coach in challenger scene, which is like right before Ascension, right before all these teams like KRU, C9 and stuff. What we do is like we scrim against like these tier 1 teams quite a bit, like teams like C9, Fnatic, Optic, stuff like that, or NRG now, right? And what I try to do is like bring all the knowledge from all these different regions, from these teams, like when I talk to them, to their captains, to their coaches, right? Collect all this information and provide it to my players usually, and also to you guys in the academy, right? So I'm gonna try and bring like a coach's perspective a little bit on how this game sort of progresses. I think it's a really cool game to watch because C9 is sort of running. I mean, Viper is still sort of new to like players and ranked and in our academy as well. Like we are running Viper, but it's not too much. I feel like people need to understand a little bit more how to run this agent, but also then, like I said, KRU's bringing like an entirely new comp, running Chamber here, which we haven't seen in a very long time, and running it without the Viper. Okay, sort of like double sentinel situation here, right? This C9's comp is, and we're gonna start with comps by the way, because it's like a big part of like how we look at the game. So first we're gonna talk about matchups a little bit, what the idea behind the comps are, and sort of like, okay, well, what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses, right? How do the comps really work? That's a big part of it. Okay. So C9's comp, it's actually a comp that Guard ran before, which like they want to win sort of like copy like a lot of the setups and like a lot of the plays, but that tends to happen in high tier a lot before we see it. Like maybe before Guard, someone else might have run during scrims, right? It's just like when innovation happens at like the top of tier 2, tier 1, and scrims usually like a lot of teams start following like similar compositions and similar strategies essentially, right? But I want you to look at C9's comp, right, and just try to understand like what are the strengths and weaknesses a little bit on top on this map, right? So C9 is starting with defense here. Now this is more of an attack sided comp. Okay, you're gonna see a little bit more like, okay, well they have a Jet, Sky, Omen. All of these things are like really good to take like contact and fight like forward, you know, like pushing into different directions, like taking fights, right? Setting up with flashes, setting up with blinds, right? And then you have like sort of these two anchors, right, to sort of balance it a little bit, right? So maybe you will have like a Viper holding down one side and a KJ holding down another, right? Or on the attacker side, what this sort of looks like is during the default or at the beginning, the Viper would use some walls like this, maybe this, right? And sort of condition, sort of like you would see on bind short, right? Where you would put like a wall in A short and like start conditioning A short, like pushing into it, creating a lot of pressure. So that's sort of how you start. But where this comp really sort of shines, or where the strength of the composition is actually once you have site control, post spawn can look really dangerous. I want you to think of Pearl, and let me actually take you there on Valopant. But I want you to think of Pearl B-side post spawn, where you have like your Viper utility, mollies coming in, you know, post spawn. It's looking really painful, right, to retake. It's sort of like that, but how you really use Viper is maybe let's say your post spawn is on A side, like you will start like creating a lot of space for your players on site. And basically, you know, using mollies and a lot of DK that you would use maybe with the smoke here, for example, right? And you create a lot of time for your teammates basically against a retake, and this becomes really strong. Something similar happens on C side as well, on B side as well, based off of the walls and smokes, right? But that's the general idea. I want you to think of it sort of like shooting an arrow into a site and like sort of creating like a spider web, you know, like where like entering into it is like really difficult, right? So that's sort of what the playstyle looks like, and it's like super strong on attacker side. On defender side, it's a little bit more difficult to run this thing. But how you can sort of manage to do it is, of course, you're gonna keep like a Killjoy setup somewhere, Viper setup somewhere. You can push mid round. You can decide, you know, playing like aggressively every once in a while. But the rest of the 3 agents that you have, they have to continuously keep taking contact. Retaking is a little bit difficult with this comp as well. And we're gonna see that a little bit, like how it was a bit of a problem for C9 and how they sort of like evolved as they played the game, like through tactical timeouts and just, you know, talking to each other. Right, we're gonna see that in the game. But regardless, retaking on this comp is a little bit rough, and we're gonna see how like that's creating issues as well. Okay, that's C9's comp. Right now, KRU is doing something very different. Usually, again, like if you have been playing the game in the last 3, 4, 5 months, maybe even longer, you will see most of the time teams like to run something like a Sova, maybe a Sky here, usually a Breach, right? You would have maybe an Omen most of the time, maybe an Astra instead of the Omen, and usually a Killjoy, right? This is pretty standard, right? So these are the 5 agents you would run into. But here we're seeing, okay, they have replaced one agent entirely, which is the Breach, right? And instead of this, I think they're using an Astra, right? Yeah, okay. So what they've done, and now they're not running a Solar, right? So now what this is doing is like, okay, mid-round, you don't have drones to re-clear things, you don't have recons to re-clear things. It can be problematic to retake sites when you don't have a recon. Yes, you have flashes, right? Yes, you have dogs, but nothing to really see people or tag people as you're going through, right? So nothing like a fade eye. So that's a bit of a problem. But still, actually, they are running a raise here, right, instead of a jet. So that's also super interesting. But it does allow you to like retake a little bit better, because the raise nades can actually clear some angles for you. You can use a boom bot and stuff, right? So it's sort of balanced like this. It's a little bit off balance to regular meta, where you're not collecting as much information mid round, like directly, but there are different ways to collect information, and you can see, like, if you count the info utility, you have a race boombot, if you can count it right. You have a sky flash, sky dog, you have trips, right? So you can keep one trip here, one alarm bot somewhere, and a turret, right? So all these tiny little things that continuously sort of have map control, right? It's just you can't re-clear it as well, and you only have like maybe this and a boombot to re-clear with it, right? But not very fundamentally like large information. Still, generally very well balanced game composition, right? The only thing that they're sort of missing against a Viper is like conditioning is going to be a little bit rough. The other problem they sort of run into is, since this is the only smoker and this is a 3-sided map, you can sort of do something like attack multiple times and burn out the smokes early, right? So you might do something like, okay, during your default, you hit short, right? You hit it with a bunch of utility, get the smoke off, right? And now suddenly, if you want to hit the other side, they can only use one for maybe stop you somewhere else against the split, right? But it's going to be problematic, right? Same thing for like pulls and stuff, like they can be extracted a little bit earlier. Right, so that's the tiny little weakness of the comp. Okay. That being said, this comp sort of works like very heavily for map control. You want to think of it as, okay, well, let's say I'm starting an attack, right? I have maybe a turret marking this, right? Maybe like some, maybe an alarm bar marking this. Maybe I send in my chamber here. Maybe my KJ can lurk up here, right? I'm not even using these players right now. Maybe if I can send my chamber deep somewhere, right? I can put like a turret or trip somewhere, maybe like this, right? Or a little bit deeper, even if I get that space, right? And now, like, with just all of this space and with all of these like sort of roaming, maybe this the Astra lurking somewhere, right? Maybe what it looks like is like, okay, yes, you do have a lot of control, right? You're spread out like a spider web again, like anywhere anyone makes a move, like you're gonna get notified more or less, right? So that's sort of what this comp looks like on attack and on defense as well. It's sort of similar, where you start with map control. Okay, that's everything about compositions, right? This is super important for you to understand, because more than these teams which run into the same comps all the time, you guys in your ranked games and in when you're playing these 10 months even, you're gonna see like a lot of experimentation from your teammates, from players, which is generally speaking a good thing, right? But your job is gonna be a lot of the times, okay, well, you start a game, right, and the title screen comes up, you see their matchup, right? You need to figure out what is their composition good at, what is their composition bad at, what are some strengths, what are some weaknesses. The better you'll get at the game, the more like little tiny exploits you're gonna find, right? But that's generally should be your goal. Okay, so that's all the sort of like background about this. Little spoiler, C9 do lose this. KRU win this. I think the score is approximately it's 6-13. Okay, this is the LCQ upper final, right? So C9 was basically the last team from LCQ from NA. Went through. This was the upper final. Then they went to lower final and they got relegated. Right now, KRU is actually playing the final as we speak, and I'd like you guys to actually watch it afterwards. But before you do, just we'll try to understand the team a little bit more. Okay, now these guys had approximately 5 weeks, plus they took a little break out of those weeks, so it's not a lot of time for a professional team to create something new that hasn't been done before and keep it like flushed out. So the fact that they're doing it here, it's really impressive. Like even though a lot of us are from NA, I still want you to, like, because we are students of the game, at the end of the day, you sort of want to, it's nice to support your team, so you want to be like really passionate about it. It's a good thing, but also when it comes to learning, it's a good idea to like sort of remove that part of your perception and just sort of like look at everything objectively and try to learn from even your opponents, so to speak. Okay, so that's sort of something that we're going to try and do. Okay, hope you understand what the strengths of both of the comps look like, what the play styles look like. All right, now we're going to see how they clash with each other. Okay, now it comes to, okay, well, both of the teams are pretty high tier, they're playing pretty good Valorant, right? So you don't see major mistakes coming in. It really comes down to how are they approaching different rounds, what is the strategy behind each round. That's something that we're going to try and look into. Okay, right, so first off,
Let's get this
okay, I don't think you can hear the game, right? So I'm gonna move this a little. Give me a second. Do you guys want to hear the game sound? You're gonna hear the postures, but you won't be able to see me draw. But I can show you through the mouse clicks. What would you prefer?
I think just we don't need the sound, just the drawings.
All right. Okay. All right, I'm gonna try it that way in that case. Okay. All right. So we start with the pistol here. All right. Okay, it's a little chaotic, the pistol round. Okay, but I want you to just sort of pay attention to this. Okay, now defense, starting C9, starting defense, they're buying a lot of pistols, right? So 4 pistols here, 4 here as well, a lot of utility as standard. Okay, Killjoy setup here, not really playing super deep, right? This Viper wall you're gonna see commonly, it's a little bit more for retake and like sort of denial, right? But the idea is like, okay, we're not gonna give the backside to the opponents, right? And this obviously also helps with garage control. It also sort of marks down this peak, which is a little strong, like from here. So it's a tiny bit of advantage that gets missed, but like super good wall, generally speaking. But I want you to pay attention to how Rooney is using his walls on defense, and like how it sort of evolves. Okay. Rooney plays like super good here. So one of the better Viper players if you want to look at good Viper gameplay. It's more about his setups, less about his like util usage, as in like the tech, but good positioning of util, good timing.
His sheriff is crazy.
Yes, I think we'll see one of those rounds where he pops off. But okay, so see a little bit on passive hold, A on passive hold, a lot of holding down mid. Now gambles where teams are playing in pistol, it sort of depends on like how much research they've done, how much counter strategy they've done. Some teams have like, okay, yeah, on pistol we only hit this site, or maybe they'll have 2 sites. But in tier 1, tier S, these things can be really, really weird because you're always sort of looking into the habits of the opponents. Right, but they start with the slow mid default, right? Same setup that we see here again. Like Chamber has good information here. There's this TP here that he can fall back to. Right? He can mark this. Even if he falls back, there's also a chip, right? So any sort of fast pushes from A side are going to be marked, right? Now same thing sort of looks like, okay, KJ's setup looks down mid. Looking here, right? So the little spider web thing that we were talking about earlier, you can sort of see it in play, right? Now, like we have said, right, C9's comp not super good on retake, but B side retake is relatively easy. You see a blind come through here. This blind is super good. It usually attacks this. Anyone playing top, anyone playing up close, right? So you generally want to push in with it, right? They start off with it, but KRU are going for a very heavy post spawn, like very passive post spawn, right? Now that's pretty good for them, right? It's a pretty good call, right? Like they don't necessarily need a lot of control. They're not like a very heavy defensive post spawn team, but I think on a place like this on B side, I think it's all right. Right, and C9 has a good timing. I'm gonna increase the speed a little bit, right? Because I think we can be faster with this. Okay, and all right, we'll leave start sticking the diffuse right now. Obviously, C9 wants to fight, right? Like we said, like this is more like an arrowhead sort of composition, right? So you need to sort of take the fight to them. There's obviously nothing to fight here, but you don't really have utility that can sort of like assist with this, right? Remove these positions. So this is not like a very good situation for C9. Like now as they start pushing, okay, they use their blind to clear the site, okay, and there's smoke to defend them, but now they use a flash, right, to push out, but that's about it. That's basically all they have, right? Maybe they could have mollied here, for example, to pull out people, right? But retaking against something like this is really difficult because by the time they clear this much area, right, they sort of run out of utility. Like if you look at this, there's just absolutely nothing left, right? So it's a two-part retake for sure, and most of the sites are gonna sort of look like this, right? You retake this area, and if KRU is playing or any other team is playing like off-site, it's gonna look really difficult, right? Because of the economy, like how the util economy looks like, right? Because you don't really have much to attack into this area, right? A flash is okay, but it's not the best thing, right? Because people can accidentally anti-flash it. Right, so people sort of run into this. Jake hits a crazy nasty shot, like there's no business like for him to be getting this kill, but on paper KRU is winning. Like they have the delay, they have everything, but well, Leaf steals the defuse with 9 HP remaining. Sort of crazy, but it's just a chaotic round start. But I think it's important to watch the pistol, so that way we have an understanding of the economy later on. Right. So we're not going to be covering all the rounds today, but a majority of them. Let's see. So we're going to head to round number 2 directly from here.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
What do you think about them re-wrapping, like re-pushing through garage on the?
I like that. I like that.
Because I don't know. Like I feel like going for that fight with that. Like relying on spam with pistols seems a bit like you're just playing for luck. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not very nice. So that's usually the protocol I have for my teams. It's like, okay, if we're losing B site, like you need to immediately, while we're losing B site, you should be taking garage control. That way, like as the plant goes through, we can immediately launch like a retake here with the pressure from here, right? And that usually is really difficult to handle for people. But I think their idea was to maybe clear this a little bit early. They invested all the people here, like all the util here as well. Maybe they thought they will play on site more. I'm not entirely sure, but I agree. Like I would say like going from here would work a little bit better. It's a really good idea, honestly. It's impressive. Okay. We go to round number 2. Right, and round number 2 we have sort of a bonus from C9. No real rifles working here, which is sort of weird, but these guys feel comfortable with Guardian, which is okay. You want to pay a little bit more attention to buys as well. Maybe we'll have a lecture about it someday. But you want to be careful about what you buy here, right? So if you can carry these guardians into a rifle round, if your players feel comfortable with it, I think that's good. Otherwise, you can buy bulldogs, right? But these guys are buying half armor right now. Most of the time, it's not recommended to run specters, but because it's the Killjoy, she's sort of playing alone. She needs to buy full armor. It's sort of okay to run this because you're playing a little bit more for sustaining side hits. Right, but this round we see, just an eco rush from these guys. Now, they don't really have much of a choice, honestly. If they play default against a full buy or bonus buy, that's just not gonna work, right? B side take didn't work here. It's a little bit rough, and hitting into C here against like a good retake wall is gonna be really, really problematic as well. So they just sort of run into A side here, as a 5 stack. Or 4 stack here. It's not too bad. A little bit difficult for them. But what I want you to pay attention to is like early rotations here. Like super early rotations. This is super important for them to actually just do not let them in sight. This smoke terribly underestimated. Like both of these smokes, like I feel like people don't use them in even like semi-pro play a lot. I ask a lot to use these smokes, this one and this one here. They're really, really good against like, especially when you're trying to retake, but also like just stopping people, especially if you're running a Viper here. You're gonna have a lot of DK here coming out. Maybe try to cancel it with the Viper smoke, but okay, this is like a really, really good play from C9. Really good flash timing, obviously, because it's C9's own KJ, right? She doesn't take any decay from the smoke, right? Flash comes through, sprays down 3 people, super good, right? And that's a hold. But from this round, I want you to sort of just understand, okay, well, some rounds, especially depending on the economy, right? Like you cannot just spread out, even though that's what your comp is sort of designed for, right? You're just sort of sometimes forced to make plays. It's important to recognize those options, right? You're gonna see C9 also get into this trouble when they're attacking, that they don't really have positions to attack. Like you're left with either A short or C fast rushes. Right, so we're gonna see that a little bit later. It's just important to understand them so that you can actually call it. Okay, next round is round 3, which is also like, okay, bonus against the full buy from KRU. We're not gonna look into it, but something that's worth understanding is, I'm not gonna play the whole round, right? But what's worth looking at is, they have this play style, right? They're super careful with it. Like they don't sort of like leave players alone to sort of drop their guns where they're not retrievable. But also they really make sure that they're playing together, they're playing slow, they're making sure that there are no rushes from the opponents, right? As like maybe some teams like to do anti-bonus, or if they have an eco, they like to play very aggressive. You'll see that like down mid here in your ranked game even. But these guys sort of play very, very carefully. Something to learn from if you're playing 10 mans here. Super important to make that call. Guys, let's play grubbed. Let's play a little bit passive. They have a bit of bonus, right? We don't want to give away our guns. Okay, but they play it a little bit slow. End up on A side. Jake gets like a really, really good kill, right? So any frontline fights these guys would take as a team, right, they would generally win because of the gun difference, right? Which sort of forces C9 to look for like picks like these, which is like very, very timing based, right? So here they have like a double flank going on. They get past the strip because Chamber is dead, but the next one is here, right? Catches them. I don't think they expect another person here, right? So Rooney sort of plays this off angle, expecting him to push. I guess a really nice kill. So it's helping their economy. It's giving them a win condition, right? but front line is going to be rough against like this, right? Again, so very good like basic gameplay, right? Double peaks and stuff are very good from KRU, like very standard gameplay, not really big mistakes coming through. This is good, like sort of lurk smoke, like cuts lines of sight from graffiti, from on site, right? Like isolates fights. So it's a good attempt from Jakey, but that's basically it. It's a little bit rough again because of bonus. Now this is where we sort of see round number 4 is where we see like sort of this idea of a deep deposit, like, you know, just blossoming your spider web, you know, like, and expanding it as much as possible. Right, so that sort of playstyle starts coming in. You're gonna see like really good reactions from C9 as well. They're also playing their composition the maximum with the maximum efficiency they can, but it's gonna create some problems that you'll see as we go. Right, so a dog comes through short, right? They place their chamber here. KJs are working down mid, right? This is on lockdown, this is on lockdown. A lot of pressure here and here as well. But you can see Leaf is sort of sneaking up with the operator. This is a really good thing to do. What this allows you to do, and you're going to see this a little bit more on the A side of things, right, where operators might hold this angle or this angle, right, and it allows you to sort of gamble and stack on the other side of the map, right, so you can balance things. Because if this operator takes contact here, they can dash back, right, slow down with another op shot, right, so you get 2 shots basically. Any kills you get will for sure delay the opponents, but even if you don't get kills, they have to clear you twice as an operator, so that allows you to like sort of reposition like really fast. Okay, rotate really fast, which is why you can like sort of leave this person alone and like stack a little bit more on the other side of the map. This is gonna come into play in later rounds, which are a lot more valuable than these ones. But let's see how this goes. All right, so super deep line from Leaf here. Deep lines like position from here as well, right? So both teams are sort of using the same tactic, but on different parts of the map. Right, so they place one guy here. I like to call it deposit, right? So this is one deposit, right? Sort of similar with the TP here. Clearing all of this area also like super important, right? Come back here, start working on garage. Right, but now they sort of realize, I don't know who's drawing here. But now they sort of start working on mid, because this is sort of allowing them to do that. And here, I think they just make the call, okay, yeah, we're gonna pop our Sky ult here, right, and burst into this area. You're gonna see them do that a lot as well, like I think a second time on their attack. Okay, but they just pop the Sky ult, take the site. Right, but now we run into sort of the same situation, right, where we don't have any mollies on the defense on C9, right, for retake. They have one blind. Yes, they can take the site again, right? They're running with an operator, which is also really painful if you're trying to retake, right? So again, sort of running into the situation where they lose map control because of the strength of this comp, right? Even though they're working on this part, right, they have just lost the site. Now they're stuck in this retake situation again, where they might be missing it, like utility, right? This can sort of be made up if you have a KJ ult, for example, or Sky ult. Maybe a very well used Viper ult can help with it, but again, this problem that's sort of running into over and over again. Right. So they sort of leave all this area, start this retake, use the blind, you know, clear the site, site's empty. Really, like putting all 5 players off site is not like a very common thing to do, right? So you can only do it on some sites. B site is sort of notorious for it. The worst problem here, I think it's not this round, but it becomes like a big problem for C9 later on as well. I'll show it to you later. But here again, we're sort of like C9 is stuck in like this really bad position. Something you want to note down. And I really like to ask my teammates to do this, like my players usually. Now that the retake has started, Leaf has handed the operator over to Rooney, right? Rooney is going to be the last person in, right? So he can hold long lines of sight, and Leaf can actually do his job, which is playing jet, right? So create space for his team, right? You can't really do that with an operator pushing in. It's really painful to clear every angle, because let's say if I'm coming out of here, right? If I want to clear this angle, I have to turn around here, and if I want to take a shot here immediately afterwards, right, I have to like turn that around, like maybe zoom in. It's really difficult. You only get one shot as well, so rifle is a lot better for it, right? So rifle exchange there, right? They start retaking this. Again, doing it from here would work a little bit better, but again, the way that KRU is playing, coming out of this with multiple people is also really difficult, because you have satchels available, molly maybe available here as well. I think good crossfires, but again, this is looking really bad, right? Because the only thing they have is a flash, and it doesn't work. All right, this pattern starts repeating like over and over again. Okay. Wait, did it win this? Hold on a second. Okay. All right. Yep. So KRU wins this. Anyway. All right. Next round we head over to. We're gonna skip round number 5 because this is exactly the same thing happening on the other side of the map. Okay. So you sort of go like this. Okay. Some exchange here at the beginning. They lose their anchor, the deposit, right? But they have control here. End up on this site, which is completely left for retake here. Problem here, this wall is not for retake, right? So this wall is for deep sea control, garage control, and like B holding down B, right? But now C site is completely left for retake, which I don't think is a good idea, especially if you are on an eco. But not a super important round for us. Again, because it's an eco, there's only one operator. If the operator is not being used continuously, like, so I would not put the operator in this position. If the operator is not being used, you're gonna end up losing a site. You don't really have good advantages. We're stuck in a retake situation against a full buy. I start with this, and typical blind coming in. I have good fights on site. Like, it's not really worth looking into them, right? Because very heavily sided on the attackers, and because they get the site for free and have better guns. Okay, so not very good round. It's a little bit rough. You can't really have a lot of control. Minor mistakes, but this is where a timeout comes in. Now there's a delay in the timeout. It could be because of the eco round as well. But okay, C9 C9 calls a timeout. MCE, their head coach. I think he catches on to what we're catching on to right now, right? Which is. Okay, the comp has certain strengths, right? But retaking is gonna be difficult unless they really set it up well, right? So they're gonna have to change up their viper walls a little bit, which is the evolution I want you to focus on. Okay, this is what timeouts are sort of for. Okay, understanding the play style and the game plan and like win conditions of the other team, and sort of coming up with ideas that work against them. Right now, ideally, as a coach, what I like is I also like to give some rounds for my teammates to make that decision, for my IGL to make that decision, right? So it is a skill that you're gonna have to build as players. I would go as far as like not calling a timeout for 2 extra rounds just to see whether my players can come up with the counter by themselves. It's super important to do that because you can't be calling out multiple timeouts, right? In each half you only get one, so it's a little bit rough like that. You want to build this skill, but anyway, the timeout call comes out, right? And instead of like seeing like deep control walls, we're seeing this like retake wall again on C site. Instead of like control wall that they used, this was the one that they used in pistol. Right now there's a minor change in the playstyle as well that I want you to pay attention to. Attacker side starts a little bit differently. Instead of controlling this area too much, they're just going for like fast attack on A side. Let's see. And the idea is also, okay, they're running the Killjoy here, so, well, they can retake this with the Killjoy ult. It's not too bad. Oh, they're gonna run into some problems that I want you to look at as well. Just pay attention to this round. Okay. So round starts. KJ realizes that, okay, this side is being hit. Let me get off of it. Right, we're gonna retake with the KJ ult anyway. Don't really need to deal with all this utility that they're using. Smoke comes through, delay molly. Delay molly allows everyone to rotate over. Right, KJ ult comes through. Whereas the KJ ult is a little bit different than the usual one here, right? That's something that you want to avoid doing against a team that has, I think they have a raise ult, but also against like nades and mollies like put together. It's a little bit easy these days to like break this thing. People have like sort of figured it out. Anyway, they use the KJ ult, start dropping down on site, very similar to what we saw earlier. They just leave all of the site again. Like in pro tier right now, some teams are doing something like, okay, they will leave one person on site against the KJ ult. They would tank the ult, try to kill people who are like whoever is playing on the site. Let's say someone's playing here, right? They're being assisted by flashes, by smokes and stuff like all the time by their team who's playing off the Killjoy ult. Right, and they will try to get multiple kills and maybe get detained. Right, so what ends up happening is because they're retaking with the KJ ult, they're not going to end up using too much utility. Site doesn't get cleared very well. So anyone who's playing in here, for example, may end up getting 2 kills plus if you support them well. Right, so it's like a good trade, you know, getting detained while getting 2 kills against the retake. It's a pretty solid win condition. But they don't go for it. It's similar to what they did earlier to their playstyle, which is fair because they were running with this ult, and the KJ ult was sort of like weaker one that was used, like as in not the one that covers all of the area. Okay. There's still pulse, and oh, now we have some extra utility going in, which is like, okay, there's one molly now, but like again, C9 really can't reach past this, right? They're still running into that same sort of situation because of the KJ ult, like where they started, but still more than before because of how they sort of like decided to play this time around. Like there are some mollies actually going deep. There's a better attempt at retaking. Nice, come through, take a pretty good fight here. But unlucky, doesn't necessarily work. But there is a major evolution in the playstyle, right? Unlucky for C9, it doesn't pan out. Right, we're gonna see. I think, okay, this was round number 6. Round number 7 is very similar. But it's a little bit rough for C9 because it's against like they don't really have a buy. So I'm just gonna skip it, right? Because the win condition is the same. Things we're gonna learn from the round are the same. It's just a different site. Okay, so similar this time. The setup looks a little bit different, where instead of deposit here, they start with the deposit here and just end up on C site, which is like fair against like a weak buy. Yes, there is a retake wall. It's a little bit better this time, but again, because of the guns, it's not looking very nice. So a lot of really unlucky rounds for C9 as well, but they do fumble like big time on one of the, like I think 2 really crucial rounds. Okay, it's a little bit rough, the start of this. If you're a Jet player, you want to be like really aware of timings here, right? The idea is that you're gonna end up playing for control of lobby a lot, especially on defense. You want to understand like how different utilities sort of like create space for you, how you can like bypass it sometimes. So like there's this thing like maybe the other team is running a breach, right? Maybe they will run a stun here. You can dash in updraft and like sort of get into a pocket like this. So there's a lot of like tiny little details on how to deal with this. You need to understand that, but when new comps sort of come through, it can be a little bit problematic. I think Leaf falls for like pickup smoke here. People are just coming out of it. Right, so it's a pickup smoke. So suddenly this is like one person was swinging. Now it's like a double peak because the smoke got picked up. Right, so super strong doing that. Leaf falls for it. Usually you would play see Jets playing a little bit further back. Right. But okay, this is round number 8, right? So this is where we see a second evolution. Right now, like notice how like again like I asked you to pay attention to the Viper wall, right? Notice how it's changed a little bit more right now. This was a good retake wall. Now this is a heavy retake and B defense wall. So you're gonna be stopping B pushes entirely, right? So any team that tries to like sort of run in here and run out is gonna be problematic. But also you get to retake C side. Now, why am I saying over and over again these half walls are good for a retake? The wall cuts off the site into two parts. Whenever you're retaking any site, it's sort of nice to just divide the site into parts and retake it in parts instead of like going for okay, let's just take all of the site and this lane at the same time. Right, it's too much for you usually. So putting a wall like this, one, it allows you to like clear this area first, drop the wall and clear this area later, right? That's a little bit better. But also, if someone's playing here, right, post spawn, if you're trying to defuse the spike, right, it's going to be cut off by the wall. So it's like a smoke for that as well. And anyone who's trying to enter or exit this area, it's very easy for them to get like tagged by the wall, as in like have the debuff. And that can be really useful as well. Right, so knowing this difference is super good. I'm going to drink water for 1 second. Okay. All right. Well, so an evolution of the retake wall again. Like in the same game, we've seen like multiple walls come through here. Now, let's see how this one works out. I'm just gonna play this out because I think this is a very good round, and like it's sort of finally starting to, you know, work. Like the composition on the defense, C9's like composition is finally starting to work out. Like I said, it's like very heavily inspired from how guard plays. But all of these, like, you have to sort of understand that you can't just pick compositions and run the same strats. You have to understand all these like nuances, you know. Like when to use which wall, for example. What are the weaknesses of your composition, you know? So something like this, for example, like this wall is very common, right? You need to understand like what are the weaknesses of this, right? So the weakness of this wall, for example, is like having a jet here or a chamber in this case, marking down this line. The way you can sort of enable that is by putting like a smoke here at the beginning. That way it's like it's difficult for the attackers to get this line first, right? But we're gonna see like how KRU deals with it and how like C9 sort of deals with it as well. All right. Okay, so C9 uses the same wall to get side, but KRU doesn't even contest it anyway, and still win. Is it because of post plant util? Mostly all the win cons that we've seen so far are off of post plant util. But a lot of the times when C9 had good walls as well, they just did not have the economy to help with it. So it's been really unlucky, honestly, the game the way that has gone for C9. But they did fumble at the beginning. Like they had the wrong game plan at the beginning, which came in like very late after their attack timeout. Right. Now it's sort of late also because of how like the ults are building up. We're gonna see a little bit more of this. Okay, so difference in gameplay here. This time C9 sort of like decides to stack this side, so they're a little bit late on getting information. But Zelsius calls it that they're working on B of the flash and everything. Wall comes up, Zelsius starts taking a fight. Phantom working really well against this. Like in fights like these, like Phantom is super good. There obviously you can see the decay, right? This is super nice. Molly comes through as well, like so this is a complete shutdown here, right? And this is sort of what you wanted to do in all those rounds where like the site was lost, and they had the plant, right? You wanted to intercept it a little bit earlier. What could have helped here? This wall could have helped here. The other way, like someone said here, like having like a garage retake would help as well. Okay, well here Crew doesn't really have an option, honestly. They don't really get to take the site. They can do some damage maybe by going garage or maybe going short. But super good round. Like finally works in C9's favor. The way they actually want. They should be running the composition, right? A really good util from Rooney as well. Could be a little bit faster as well. I think if he plays a little bit more lineups, then it will be faster that way. But alright, finally works out for C9. So we finally have like a direction going here. Now, why is it so important? Why does it feel like C9 is losing terribly, even though it's like only 3-5? The round differential is only by 2. Because this composition, like I said, it's a double sentinel. They have contact a lot. Their retake is not terrible, right? So it's very, very defense sided, right? This comp is attack sided, but it only works if you actually get the site, right? So we're gonna see a little bit like how that plays out in the second half. But 3-5 is not looking very good for C9 so far. Okay, next round we're gonna look is round number 9. Actually, round number 9 is one of the best rounds that they had, I think. Yeah, it's like a crazy punish from Leaf here. It's going insane here, right? And this is again, this is the strength of this composition, right? Like we said, it's like sort of like an arrow that sort of blooms afterwards, right? Like a shock dart or something. Which like, okay, you can dash into areas, you can take areas fast, and then you can set up into it, right, and control it. Or on defense, you know, you can control a bunch of area and have like fast pushes into one piece of the map, right? It could be either here, could be here, could be here. Like it really depends on what you choose, right? Which is where your win condition sort of lies. It's like, okay, well, every time there's nothing else involved, like conditioning or ults or something. Maybe not the operator even. Then you gotta decide a good part of the map to take early, and then maybe like handle it well during mid round. So they have like a hard finisher. They've been noticing that, okay, Crew has been taking this control like very often. It's very likely they're gonna hit this side fast, which they do. Like there's no setup here. I wonder what they read it off of. Let me see. Is the Cager ult ready? I don't think it is. Okay. But very smart read from them, and like very heavy punish as well. The blind works sort of like breach stun to allow this fight. Okay, flash comes through and creates more opportunities, like, and really sort of like peak of C9's composition. All right. Let me check one more thing. I think I know what the read might be off of. Okay, they lost last round, right? Yeah. So the read might be because of, okay, they might think this is probably like a save round, sort of, and on like eco rounds they do hit A sites, even though like the economy is not looking bad here. But I don't know how they read it. Super good read, very heavy punish on it. Okay, round number 9 was like that. Okay, round number 10 I'm gonna skip. Round number 11 I'm gonna skip. All right, round number 10 is I think Crew just attacks A site like later on, and there's KJ ult involved, I think. Let me see. Okay. So they hit A site. KJ ult is going on. They just take the site with it. Sort of C9 is forced into a retake situation again. Not really worth looking into. But you know, comes very close. Then we have round number 11, which again is played well by C9, but it's just like a big economy difference. So he starts here. They sort of notice it, leave it. Again, notice how like the wall has permanently been more or less like changed for this, right? Which is working a lot better for C9. They had A site instead of their ult. C9 decides to take some early fights, which is again good for them. This time, again, Crew wins because better guns, and good ult. Sort of look at it. So ult comes through. Taking fights. Okay, Sepa dies. Don't really have anything to work with, right? An operator rifle to retake with, so not looking very good. Maybe we can watch the last round as well. Let's see. Don't really have notes for this. Right, so again, save from C9. Like again, like save as in this last round. This is the most they could buy. Something similar here again. Works out in their favor because again, people are not really available. I'm gonna skip through a lot of it. Another fight that comes through here. Good trade here. The two picks end up hitting C site, which is again sort of like fair because they're missing smokes and it's just really rough. Alright, not going super deep here. Operator comes through, so no real reason to peek. KRU gets a couple picks, and that's half, right? Pretty rough half, honestly speaking, for C9. Again, 4-8, generally looking really bad. Again, it's dangerous more because this composition is going to be stronger on defense, right? But C9 needs to make their way onto the sites now to win. Okay. I want you to sort of keep that everything in mind that we talked about. Okay, well, KRU has a lot of utility to sort of control the map initially, but not as much to re-clear mid-round, not as much to have exact information. C9 has like sort of the arrow kind of bloom composition where if they get a site, they can hit into sites very fast because of this unit, right? Create a lot of space for themselves. Once they have the space, they can put some Viper utility down, maybe a smoke down, play mollies, keep people alive off-site, from off-site with the Sky, with the Viper, and like take fights on site. Okay. All right. So keeping that in mind, now we head into the second half here. We have a little conversation with Maddie. I'm gonna look at that right now. Okay. All right. So very typical sort of defense where you have a lot of like sentinel utility, like blocking a lot of places, but it's also like sort of evolved, right? Like most of the time you would see something like 4-stack here, KJ play here, blocking both of these places with some smokes and maybe KJ utility, right? Delaying it and playing for rotate. So usually this is what like pistols look like. A lot of the times, not all teams like to do it. I don't like to do it in my teams, but very common. But it gets evolved when you have double sentinel, right? Because you can keep the KJ here, keep all of her setup here, right? So B is locked down already. C is like sort of marked down passively, right? You have trips for garage as well. So like this entire like cluster is just shut down with utility. You don't really need to worry about it too much. You have tabs on it at least, right? Like yes, the garage can be taken, but at the same time, like you're not going to be caught by surprise, which allows you to like sort of stack A site very heavily. Right, this is what I was talking about earlier, right? Where you know, the wall. This is like very common wall now, on Haven, and the idea behind the wall is okay. Well, you're gonna put the wall here. Work on the rest of the map, maybe lurk people in every once in a while, like here. Maybe it'll be your Viper, maybe it will be your entire team, maybe it will be 1 or 2 other people sometimes, right? And consistently have this pressure, right? Now you need to deal with this like really well, right? So next time, maybe if this happens to you, like if the other team takes this area away, which generally tends to happen as a part of the default, right? Which is like, okay, a breach would stun you, right? And this would get taken away. But generally against a breach composition, like what C9 is running is like really good, right? Like remember the breach SOA comp that we talked about earlier, which is pretty meta right now. Like this composition is super good against them, right? But here they're using like the pulse and the smoke, right? So you can maybe molly this area to clear it, but you still will be like you don't have line of sight into it like you usually would. Right, so it's a little bit annoying to clear that. And here we see like C9 sort of like head-to-head running into this. Very messy fight, but good trades for C9, right? Looking super good so far. Now, I think if Cloud9 like flashed here as a reaction, maybe one person would have stayed alive here, and have like this might have looked a little bit better. But here, I think they don't go for it. Klaus just sort of chills. I can't pronounce that name. The raise uses a bot here and sort of like falls back. It's sort of trying to bait out C9 into chasing him. Because this is very common, right? Like having two people pushed up here, two people pushing up here, like placing one guy here and two people here, right? Playing this crossfire, you know, bait setup. Like this is like a really good place to create traps, right? So it's expected for people to be playing up close, right? That's what the way is sort of trying to bait out. It's like, okay, no, it was just one person. I'm running away now. Look at me. But C9 still clears this. Right, they clear it properly. It helps that they have a frenzy. But the other thing is, this wall does interfere with this crossfire setup that you push with. So I don't think pushing in here is like the best call for KRU. Anyway, that's just my opinion. But it's sort of okay to try and punish it from here, but I don't think pushing like this is a good idea. Anyway, C9 sort of plays against that. Just pushes in, okay. Uses dot to clear this area, puts wiper smoke, I think, for heaven. It's a flash here and like a really good like crossfire here. Like, so this is a repositioning. Now, I think Davies knows that there's a planter here, right? I think he came into contact here. I think heard the viper put the thing here, right? So he's expecting one person here, maybe. But Zeppa uses a flash and just repositions. It's not caught. Okay, it's hard to sort of like predict this, right? And like this sort of a play, like if you make it in your games when you're playing 10 months, when you're playing ranked, like this is doing this is like stupid important, especially when you're playing post-spawn and maybe let's say a recon comes in, it scans everyone, right? You still delay them, right? Maybe like there's a molly or something, but now when they're coming in, like everyone who is scanned is gonna get pre-fired, right? Or pre-aimed at least. So repositioning is super important. The scan is like a very obvious example, but most of the time, let's say like one of my teammates is playing here, right? I'm playing here, right? They start retaking. I get traded. My teammate was here. We delay them, right? There's a window for my teammate to like maybe rotate here or fall back here. But if they stay in this position, especially if they don't move for this corner or another peak, like it's gonna get re-cleared. So it's not super good. It's a mistake I see a lot. This is like a really prime example of like how to work against that proactively. So something to learn from. But Davies runs into a crossfire, loses there, right? C9 is finally building some momentum. Okay, round number 14. Is it worth looking at this? Let me check. This is actually a prime C9 round. Okay, so this is worth looking into. Okay, so there is a bit of a force from KRU here. Weird buy. It's sort of like not my favorite against like a comp like this that runs fast. This might be good against like a default T team, but they do a heavy stack here with two scouts. Stack doesn't work out for them. C9 hits for this. Okay, they get the site for free, which is what they want, right? Which is their win condition. Again, it's like if you're a KRU, you should know this. Okay, buddy. All right. Anyway, so a little bit late to the site, but still, they do get the site here. Smoke is ready. There's a bit of a delay from the plant. There's a full flank coming in. It's a little bit funny here, I think. Yeah. Okay, so it's a little funny here because okay, we talked about how like retaking with this comp against C9's comp, not a very good idea, generally speaking. But like a big part of retakes is like, okay, well, before you actually hit the site, what you want to do is like remove utility from the opponents, right? And we talked about how at the beginning, like, there's only limited smokes that they have, right? Because they were only running a singular smoke, right? That's already a save round. They go for a triple flank, a quad flank here, a triple flank actually, and they run into a KJ turret here. They hear, okay, there's a KJ turret. Let's smoke it off, and we're gonna walk up. But he just picks up this turret, so they smoke nothing. And there's an alarm bot here anyway. So now they don't have the one smoke that they needed for retake. And what was already looking rough for retake, like it's looking even worse for absolutely nothing. It's really funny. But they take the site here, which is fair. Again, they have their smokes going on. Something that we understand already. That it's going to be more useful. Post plant is really what we're interested in here. All right. So here, I don't think the camera is showing it. Maybe another round would show it. But what's happened here, again, like holding this is very, very easy. Rooney's playing this position because he can molly off of this. Like he has lineups for this position from like for the choke. I'm gonna fix this a little bit. It's looking really bad. Okay. And yeah. So a really good round from C9. Time's running out. They're flashing them away. No real win condition for a crew left here. That's it. They just leave, go to the bomb. Pretty good round for C9. Like this is generally what they want. It's a little bit rough. They had the site empty. They didn't take it in time. But also, they had the site empty, so we don't really get to see like the best of their attack. But yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that was round number 14. Okay. Let's see. Do we need to see round number 15? Not really. There's not much to see here. C9 not on a very good buy. Doesn't really work for them. They don't really get to enter the site. One thing I want you to notice is notice how like one way to deal with this wiper wall was to place a person here, right? Like maybe a jet, but these guys don't have a jet, so maybe using like a chamber. The other way they're dealing with this is sort of like really genius, like because a lot of teams like would like to leave their Sova, for example, or info initiator on A side just to have like, okay, I'm gonna keep checking for information here and here and here. That way, if there's an A hit, I can actually call for a rotation. I can fall back and we can play for a retake, right? So it's generally like how a lot of Sovas would play. It's hard to do this against a wiper, especially with this guy, but C9 does it like sort of well, like especially Zappa here. I think it's finding like really good timings. So the idea is, well, if you start the round, okay, the round starts here, right? I think maybe he gets better after this round. Like this is a little bit at the beginning, but okay. Anyway, so they start off with this. They actually start with the pull here. I think there's a little bit of spray. But more importantly, the flash comes in later. It's not like a recon that comes in like right at the beginning, right? Like if you throw the flash like right at the beginning, like you're gonna catch maybe like all the people here early. Maybe it'll be the lurker early. If you send it like maybe it's like what 15 seconds in, but if you send in like a little bit later, it gives a lot more like accurate information, right? So maybe if you send it here, people have crossed the smoke already. You send it here, it doesn't catch anyone, so okay, it's just sort of empty, right? But still not super good, right? Because it might be one lurk. So I think sending a dog here becomes important. Anyway, because they have this information, they maintain their stock here. This is set up there. They're gonna like you're gonna see a lot. But anyway, not very good guns from C9, just sort of not working with like a lot here. oh, this is actually really nice for you to look at as well. Like this ties in really well because they have a more freedom to stack this side. They actually put a trap here. The trap is like sort of really cool. So this is like usually what you would think is like a smoke start, right? Like, okay, well, if they see pressure here, they're just gonna put a smoke here. Maybe they'll put a pull here, right? And that would be super good. But they have this chamber here who can TP out on contact, right? So if two people swing, he's gonna be relatively safe. It's like a good off angle as well, not entirely an off angle, but it's a good angle. It's crouching while he shoots, so that's super nice as well. And gets the shot. Should generally TP out here. It doesn't really get pressured here, but in a situation like this, I think Maester can use his pull. I think he does use it. And yeah, people who are coming out should be okay. No, it's just a smoke, but he can use a pull here, and like it's gonna be really problematic as well. Then on top of that, there's a trip here that also slows down people. Works out really well for crew, like having a trip, like a trap here, and having deep control of A side with just using one initiator, not much utility. Right, so unlucky for C9, they don't really get entry onto the site. Mostly because they try to take it dry, which is a little bit rough. Okay, but that's this round. Next is round number 16. This is a big key round. Okay. Now, okay, so far they haven't had really like a lot of the losses have been because of economy. Right? Finally, they have good economy working here. They have 1 pistols on both sides, by the way, so far. This round matters like a stupid amount because next few rounds there's gonna build ult economies as well. All right, well, crew is working with an Astra ult here. I think a KJ ult as well. So C9 sort of looks at like their looks at all of this. Right, sort of works here, pressure C site a little bit. No rotations from crew. Right now, this is a super important round for C9, and how we've discussed this, how like their best case is okay, they take the site and play post mount off of it, right, to avoid retakes, right? But that's how we talked about. B site is not one of those difficult to stop or retake sites, right? So like B site plays a little bit differently, where okay, you can retake it like super well, but coming out of here can be really problematic, as we saw from C9's defense. Right. C9 decides to hit B site. They bypass all the utility, so the execute is not too bad. Right. They have all the space. Okay. Not really taking too much. Okay. They have the site, play on site as well. Good positions, right? Like standard positions. This position would be rough against like an Omen because of the blind that we mentioned earlier, or a breach because same line for the stun can really shut this down. But because they don't have any of this, sort of becomes a little bit better. Onside post plant here, don't really get to plant, but it's very common to not be able to plant here, and like by the time you plant, people to be ready. That's crew spawn here as well. Okay, well, we can delay them, and then we can retake it later. It's not too bad. Plant comes through immediately. Astral comes through. Right, super difficult to play offsite now. I think C9 knows this, right? And C9 knows this. That's why I think they play post plant here, and then they leave Rooney for a flank. Right now, how we talked about how like the strength of C9's comp is their post plant. It only works if you have mollies coming onto the site and Rooney playing like off here and delaying this. Right? Yes, there is a Astra wall, but I think it can go through and you can still delay. But Rooney decides, okay, I'm gonna go for a flank instead. So one of the easiest like sites to retake. Open positions here. Fights happen, they don't really go in his favor. Dry fights here a lot, not really playing with util too much. Don't have the same sort of utility that we talked about before, right? Like using mollies and using flashes and choke to sort of deny re-entry into the site. We don't see any of that working. Right, dry peaks everywhere. flank comes through. Flank is actually marked by Klaus, which is insane, like awareness from these guys. They take this. Now you can't spam it, right? So really bad site selection as well, based on the ults that they have. Flash comes through here. KRU does a little bit better this, like with rather than Cena, they had garage control all the time, and then when this push comes through, they send it like at a good timing. I think good fights here, double up here. That's the end. Very crucial round for Cena that they should not have dropped. I feel like if they had a better selection of site, it might have looked a little bit better. But let's extend looking here. Really, really rough. Not losable yet, but generally speaking, like super rough. Okay, Cena is forced into a bad economy round again, because this is the economy. That's why like the last round was absolutely crucial, right? You're seeing KRU into a similar setup where, okay, well, you know, they're trying to get information here with just their info initiator, playing a side for a little bit of a retake. I think they can do it because of the ults. No, they don't have a KJ ult. Never mind. But Klaus realizes that this is coming in. Okay, smoke comes in here for Klaus to play in, right? Same smoke that we talked about earlier. Again, I don't know why people don't think these smokes are good, but it's always the standard default smokes that everyone uses, like here and here, or maybe sometimes here. But anyway, Klaus doing his job to delay. C9 become a little bit slower on taking the site. I feel like they could have taken this faster. I felt this is happening the second time while they're attacking. But they're waiting out their ult, you know, using their ult, trying to take the side with it. I feel like they could have taken it without the ult and played for KJL post plant. It is what it is. Plant comes through. Okay, this is looking good for C9, right? Usually, like, this is what they want. Unlucky for them that they don't have the right guns for it. I want you to see like this round and imagine it with actual rifles, because they played this really, really well. But again, their economy just, you know, shafts them. Okay, so yeah, smokes are going on, right? You have blinds to delay the first wave, then you have this to delay the first wave, like the orb, then you have like KJ mollies, maybe even, yep, that's the KJ molly going on. Then you have Viper molly landing here. Like, there's absolutely like so much delay, right? Usually when I ask my teammates, or when I coach like 10 months as well, I think in a few classes as well, I've covered this topic, but like when you try to retake in our 10 man sometimes, so mostly in ranked, what you're gonna see is like your team's just gonna group up here. If you're having a good day, you're gonna group up here. You're gonna say, okay, I'm reconning now, and let's just push in, right? But it's smarter to wait out like one wave at least, if not a couple of waves. The idea is to like sort of push out a little bit, use cheap utility to bait out things, and then maybe save the recon for the third push, right? The third wave of utility, or the second wave of utility when you're actually want to come in, right? But as you can see, like they have so many waves. Like you have KJ Molly, then you have like the Viper Orb, then you have Viper Molly, Omen Blind, like so much utility to dump here that there's absolutely no way KRU should be able to retake. But they get one timing, like one small tiny little timing when the Viper Orb still hasn't recharged, like his missing fuel, so he can't really pick it up, right? So these guys don't have a debuff. They miss it by a second, right? Very small opening, but they use it, they punish it because they have the guns coming out here, like, you know, destroying this crossfire. It's really difficult to do. Immediately, two people are down. Beautiful timing here. Right, and they clean up the site. Everyone is left here, just a demon, Deagle demon, but unlucky, not enough. So works again, like in theory, everything works for C9 except for their economy. But this is what the best of their composition looks like in action. Alright. This was round number 17. Okay. Here we see that weakness that we talked about, right? Where Chamber's playing and holding this line. and suddenly like they don't have to hold any of A side anymore, right? He can TP into this, so this is really easy for him. Same sort of commitment here. You can pull back a little bit here. This is fine. So a little bit aggressive here. Fair trades, right? You can't really ask for more. Except that that's fine. Okay, 2v2 situation. There's delay here, but okay. Well, Seba gets like a huge pick here. Really good timing as well. Catches this. TV's tucked. Alright, plant is through. Things are looking okay. But he clutches this absolutely crucial round, and there's just nothing left for C9. That's a really, again, like, you call it unfortunate, but also you have to see that these guys were getting absolutely dominated last season, right? And they're playing so well right now. They're really showing up with absolutely no new comp that no one has run in a long time, coming up with their own strategy within approximately 5 weeks, which is crazy. Right, C9 calls timeout when you have to at this point. It's sort of your last chance. Definitely your last chance. Okay. This time around, they start with this a little bit aggressively. This is a good matchup, not too bad. This is, I think it's an insane round actually, so let me talk about it before. So something that you need to understand is, okay, well, B site is not an option at all, right? Based on like what we have run into before, right? I think this time around as well, they have Astra ult going on, right? They have so many ults, look at them, all of them are full, right? B site is not an option to hit at all, right? C site has been heavily shut down, like most of the times. Right, so the only two options basically they have are A site or C site, but realistically speaking, they're just sort of forced into this. Right? This has worked for them before. Right, so not a very good position for C9 to be in, right? But I think despite all of this, I think this round is absolutely insane. And I want you to just sort of like watch it. There's not much worth explaining here. It's very obvious, but it's a really crazy round. I think you can hear it this time.
Still not over just yet. Again, okay. Cloud9 really trying to focus now over towards the safe side, but Davies has done such a good adjustment. He's actually
right. So this time there's mollies here, like they're aware of this problem.
Started to opt through this and also put the trademark on, but misses the shot and loses that position early. The thing is, there's two players still here for KRU.
And Davies has taken the space back.
Showstopper out.
Here he fills. There's a Seeker.
Good entry.
Seeker looking for something.
But somehow completely denied, right? Like there's a like jet positioned up here. Like it's so difficult to shut that down. But there's this perfect flash coming up on top of this box. Like actually, let me find this frame.
The shot and loses that position early. He's done such a good adjustment. He's two players still here for KRU.
And Davies has taken the space back.
Showstopper out.
Right.
Here he fills.
The ult comes through, a flash up here, peek comes through afterwards. Right, it's crazy. Like this guy's blinded himself.
There's a Seeker. Seeker.
He pops in midair with a headshot.
Looking for something. But the smoke is what's keeping him back, so they're going to rotate off of this.
And Jake
Catch
didn't even get a
rotation
TP
early. The ult's going through is telling them exactly what's happening.
off. If he got that, maybe they have the C site to rotate into now. They're struggling. They're scrambling.
They've been thrown into disarray, and Melzer with position to put him away. Spike on the ground, a 5v3.
It's looking disastrous with like, okay, pretty obvious where they're rotating.
KRU in a position to pull off what everyone thought was unthinkable. What everyone thought was impossible.
It should have been.
The first few series, sure. Against a weak MIBR, why not? But against Cloud9.
Here.
An outrageous possibility, but Jay can snatch him back and he can do it on his own. He gets two there, Celsius with another counter, now Pit invested. Bit of room for Rooney to work. Maybe Nags can make a play, of course it's gonna be Nags. He's gotten it down to a 2v2. It's still up, Nags with another!
No way, the lockdown gonna be bested!
Rooney has to push this, he's gotta go. Well considered by Nags to tuck, though clears it out, there's a swing, he's got it down to 1v1.
Oh no!
Where's Davies? Just on the other side, and he delivers the shot!
not talking. Okay, but very close round, very crazy game. I think this was like one of the most entertaining games from LCQ. Because of how like both teams sort of played, like new compositions, new ideas. Super insane. But yeah, I think a lot of things to learn from here, especially though like what I want you guys to sort of focus on. I think like I talked to Lucas about this as well. Like the idea is, okay, we're having 10 months a lock right now, and big focus of our 10 months right now is to just sort of like try out new compositions and just understand like weaknesses and strengths. This is sort of like, okay, like this is sort of how like the play styles work, you know, how you want to sort of decide how to play with the composition you're building or you're running into, for example, like what are their strengths gonna be. You sort of want to think about it, right? Super important. Anyway, the more pro play you will see, the better ideas you will get as well. There's a lot of like evolution happening right now in the meta, because the meta has been stale for the last up until like Masters Tokyo, because I think the devs didn't want to shift it too much because tournaments were coming up, lock-in and Tokyo. But meta shifting a fair amount. Teams are going to be trying new things. It's good to pay attention to teams that you might not have thought about too much, right? KRU was like really rough last time, but there are a lot of teams trying out new things, new ways to play. I would ask you guys to watch these games as well, you know, watch maybe Genji, for example, and Pacific, like even though they're not like, because again, like we're trying to learn the game, we're students of the game, right? So it doesn't really matter where we learn from. KRU's playing right down, so for sure I would watch this if you can. It might be really nice. But yeah, that's it for today. I think that's that was the game. I think a super cool game to watch. I would say shout out to Sliggy, by the way. Instead of watching it on the mainstream or watching it on Tarek, if you want to learn a little bit more about like high tier Valorant, I would say go watch Sliggy. He does like really good stuff. But yeah, that's it for today. I'm gonna call this here, shut down the recording. If you have any questions, you can ask.